So little review of everything. So my advice to you is to start with factoring, because factoring a little bit faster. So remember, you always have two options or a combination of both. You can do a table, right? And just do an XY table, and you can list X's, find the Y's, plot the points. That always works no matter what. So it's slower, but it always works. A little more efficient is to factor, find the x-intercept, find the vertex, axis symmetry, because then you don't have to you only have to really graph half of it, and then you get the other half for free because it's symmetrical. So always try factoring first, but it might not factor. So that's what we're looking at on number 1. Now, if you're going to try to factor this first, the first step would be to factor out a negative, because when you have a negative there, factoring is kind of difficult. So you do that. We got x squared, we got minus 4x, and we got plus 1. So basically, all the signs just changed when I take out a negative. That's why they say sometimes instead of take the negative of it, they say take the opposite. So we take the opposite of negative x squared is positive x squared, and so on. Now, can we factor x squared minus 4x plus 1? What two numbers multiply to 1 and add to negative 4? It's prime. Right? So we have to be able to graph those even though they're prime. It doesn't mean no graph. So keep that in mind as well. Write a note to yourself if you need to. Prime does not mean there's no graph. It just means there's no factors that we can come up with. Okay. So that means our only resort right now is a table. All right, so we have to go through and do a table kind of like we did on day 1. And you won't have to do this with every problem. So if it does factor, you might not have to make a table at all. It's knowing that, well, when one thing doesn't work, you might have to go to another to make it work. Okay? Now, I gave you a bunch of numbers before on the x to start off with, but you don't have that. So where should you begin? What piece of information can we get from the equation that might give us a good starting point? So don't know x-intercept, don't know y-intercept. Well, we don't know x-symmetry. Do you know the y-intercept? Yeah, -1, right? We just did that exercise, right? So we know the y-intercept is -1. That's right here. So we do know something. That's a good place to start. What's this coordinate right here? Is the -1 the x or the y? Yeah, y-intercept. What's the x? 0. So because I have this y-intercept, that lets me know, well, I can probably start at 0 and go 1, 2, 3, 4. So now you're building this table on your own without anything given to you. See how you find some sort of clue on, well, where should I begin? Well, there's a -1, -1. That's on the very left of the graph. So that makes sense. That's where you should start. Okay. And then, yeah, we're just going to really plug in some numbers and figure out what the answer is. So plug in 1 and see what you get. A little review. And plug in 1 into the equation and see what you get. -1 squared, 4 times 1, and -1. And you can plug in 2, -2 squared, plus 4 times 2, -1. Plug in 3, -3 squared, 4 times 3, -1. And what do you get for each of those? First one comes out to -1 plus 4 minus 1, which is 2. Okay, so a little question about that. Let's just bring up the old. Yeah. So you might recall when we have a negative here, that's like a times -1. This is your first homework you did. So even though you plug in like -3 into here, let's say, right? It's -1 times 9 plus 1. So this is still negative 9, even though it looks like negative 3 times negative 3, so it should be positive 9. You do the exponent first, then you multiply by negative 1. That's what this negative means. You have to raise it to the second power and then do the negative. Okay. So very important detail. That's why I wrote this out in this way on this problem and in the next one as well, is because it makes a difference of the order of operations. We have to do it in the right order. Okay. So yeah, we do get positive 2 here. Same thing here. So when I'm looking at this, do not do this from left to right. What you want to do is see this and do the exponent. Oh, that's 2 to the second power. And the negative is kind of like times negative 1. So this equals negative 4 plus 8 minus 1. Same as the first homework. So that will give you an answer of 3. And same thing here. Get negative 9 plus 12 minus 1. So that comes out to, let's see, 2. Okay. Now, what can I do from here on out? Do I need to keep plugging in numbers? No, we have identified the vertex. The fact that I started going up and I got an answer of 2 right here, I did another problem, I got an answer of 3, and then it went back down to 2. That lets me know I hit the vertex and I'm coming back down. This is the axis of symmetry. So if I have a point 2 away from on this side, that's 1, 2 away, same thing over here. I don't have to plug it in to figure that out. And I have graphed this entire parabola. All right, this is the same thing we did on day 1. Why would this be 3? Down from the side. Where you like at the very top next to the vertex, why would the next one be 3 away, 3 down? Oh, that's just the equation. They're not always like 1 away, then 2 away, then 3. Yeah, it's not always exact. Okay. So what is the vertex? Let's label it. All right. It's going to be 2, right? Axis symmetry is 2, and then comma 3. So that's the vertex. What are the x-intercepts? Yeah, they're decimals or fractions. Let's just estimate them. Let's just say, oh, that's going to be about negative, no, it's positive, right? Yeah, positive 0.2. And this one's going to be like 3.8. I just want you to link these two together right now. Prime doesn't mean can't be done. It means we can't do it in our head. What two numbers multiply to 1 and add a negative 4? It turns out they're 0.2 and 3.8. But you guys would have never came up with that. Okay? But there are two numbers that work. We just only think of whole numbers only. Okay? Now, hold on. The next one, factor it. The next one, it can be factored, and you don't have to do any of this T-chart stuff. So it goes back and forth. I don't just want you to repeat the first homework and do a table on all of them. I want you to try to do a factoring first, and you'll find out that's a lot faster. So pin everything together. Have a good one.